Well, good morning, everybody. It is Wednesday, and it is another day of learning here at TD Christian. I want to welcome you, students, staff, and the rest of the community to today's assembly. And we've got, just a great assembly planned, and we are going to kick it off first with this devotional from Mr. Hoving. So thank you, Mr. Hoving.
Morning everyone, Mr. Hoving here for Wednesday morning, and thankful to be able to share in devotions with you, and I just hope everyone's doing well. Last week I was scrolling through my Facebook, and one of my classmates in my master's program, Sarah, just posted a verse from Matthew, and I just thought, it just really resonated with me at the time, and I wanted to share it with the community, and hopefully it is encouragement as well. It's Matthew 11 verses 28 through 30, and this is just in the NLT. Then Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and carry heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Let me teach you, because I am humble and gentle at heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy to bear, and the burden I give you is light." And I just really appreciated that. We're kind of in the middle of it right now, and we're just over a month out from finishing. And as we've kind of laid out plans and sent that out and communicated that, what the end of the year will look like, we kind of have an end goal at this point. But we know that there are still days ahead, and it feels like we've been doing this a lot longer than we have been. But there's been a lot of good in it as well. And as we desire to finish well and to finish this year well, we just know that it's going to be an effort from everybody, from staff, from students, from families, from outside community. We just know that we need to work together to get to this ending goal, but we know that none of this is possible without God leading us, and that He will be our compass, and He will help us through this during these days. And we just look to Him to lay our burden on Him and to reach out to Him. I'm going to start today in prayer, and just thankful again to be able to connect with you. Lord, thank you for today. Thank you for this day that you've given us, and we come out to you, Lord, and we cry out to you, and we give you our burdens. And in those days where we need you, Lord, we just lift our desires to you, and we know that you will take those on and you will be there for us. And just so thankful for that encouragement, Lord, in the way that we can look to you each day. And I just ask that today is no different, and that we can walk alongside you, and you can help us, Lord, and to help us through. And as we just over a month out here, we just ask that you continue to work in us, and you are there, and we know that you're at the center of everything that we do. In your name alone, amen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hoving, as always, for your devotions and your words to think about, and just starting our day off in that way. We're going to move on to a couple segments. The first segment that I'm excited to introduce is going to be brought to you by Mrs. T. So thank you to Mrs. Tanayan Heiss for that. What you will need is some art supplies. So if you can't do it right now, that's fine, but I would suggest coming back to this assembly later and trying this activity out. So I've got my marker and I've got my paper ready, and I'm going to follow along.
Hi everyone, this is my creative space. It's a laundry room, it's an office, it's my creative mess place where I can do stuff, and anyone else in the family can join me. So the first thing when you do art is to set up your job site. So I've chosen my materials. I'm going to use some brushes, some markers, some ink, some water, and these handy little plastic lids to put stuff in. And this keeps me from taking more than I need. So what I'm going to take you through is something a lot of my art students are familiar with. It's called Scribble art. And the fun thing about Scribble art is you don't have to be an artist to do it. And I just want to encourage you to say that art is good for everyone, not just the artist. So I'll take you through a fairly relaxing technique that doesn't really matter and doesn't have any rights or wrongs. So the first step is choose a spot on the edge of your paper, and I have a big paper because I like to work big, and I also like to stand up because it gives me more body movement. So I'm going to make a dot at the edge of my space. This is my space. And I'm going to create another dot at another edge. Some of you might be familiar with this, but here we go. So I'm going to join these two dots with some kind of dance movement to get there, some kind of hockey puck play, basketball, run across the court movements. So here I go. I can even go off the paper, back on. And I like keeping some spaces big and some smaller. That's what I like. And I also want to be expressive about feelings. And sometimes I get really frustrated, and this kind of movement is really good for that. And then I'll exit at the other dot. So the next step is to color in some spaces and to make some lines get thicker and leave others as thinner. So I'll work on that, but you can watch me. I'll just show you to get started. So I'm just randomly choosing a little shape that I made with my Scribble, and I'm going to color it in with my black. Use whatever tools you have at hand. It might be, maybe you want to do it in purple, but I would recommend doing it in a dark color. So I'm just coloring in some of these spaces. I'm going to take my time with that. Another thing I'm going to do is choose some of the lines to give a thicker dimension to, and I'll color that in as well. That's called weighted line. And you don't want to do it everywhere. But what it does, it creates perspective and undulation. It kind of makes it look like the line is moving toward you and away from you, and also gives it kind of a 3D feel, because I'm changing it from line into actual shape. So you can see how it goes thick, thin, thick, thin. So I'm going to take some time to develop that so that my composition will have dimensionality and more contrast between light and dark. So I'll be right back. Hey everyone, I'm back again. I've got Arcade Fire playing, Canadian group. I really recommend playing music pretty loud while you're doing this, but I'm going to turn it down so you can hear me. So if you look at my work, you can see that I've colored in as I was going to with black, and also I've added weighted line in some areas. An interesting thing happened. My marker started to die, and it created these beautiful grays. So we live in a human world, and our tools and materials don't last forever, but they still are tools and they still have validity. I might end up using this as a paintbrush one day to get a certain type of line. So we'll put that aside. I've got my water here. As I was working, I found it really useful to turn my work around so I could see it from different angles, but also so it was easier to work at. So if I was, coloring up there, I would turn the piece so that would be close to me. I'll go back to my original. I'm going to start with color. I'm using acrylic inks.
Well, I hope you will come back tomorrow to finish off your art. So far, this is what I've got, so thank you for your direction. We're going to move on, and we are going to head into another e-block segment where we are going to learn about compost. So, Mr. Freeman, take it away.
You're watching eBlock
Quarantine Edition,
where Mr. Freeman tries to get us to grow plants inside.
This is an indoor compost bin. Composting outside is pretty simple. You have a container, put any kind of organics you have into it, from leaves to vegetable and fruit scraps. But an indoor composting bin using vermiculture, so worm composting, is quite a bit more complicated, but a really fast way of being able to deal with it. So you can see all these incredible California red wiggler worms that are just going crazy in here right now as they are working through the compost that we have put in. The key for any compost bin is to have a mix of brown organics and green organics. So it has to be almost a 50-50 mix. of things like fruit and vegetable scraps that we would consider green organic. And then our brown organic, which is almost purely carbon-based, would be things like leaves, any kind of grass or other plant leaf material that's here, and then things like coffee grinds, tea bags, or anything else like that too. So these would be enough for that. Our green organics, anything that would be from bananas to fruit, any fruit and vegetable scrap, you want it cut up as much as possible to increase the surface area. So if you put in an entire apple, that's not going to be very good. But if you broke it up into a number of pieces, that would increase the surface area. The idea is that it starts to break down before it rots and gets really smelly. So I'll just put that mix of things that are in here. Eggshells, the worms don't eat. Worms don't have teeth, so they don't really eat anything in terms of chewing it. They're more eating the bacteria and everything that are a part of breaking it down. But the advantage of eggshells is that they provide calcium, but more importantly, they absorb acid. And so any acid that's kind of from onions or tomatoes can get absorbed through that. You still cannot add oranges, citrus, grapefruit, lemons, that kind of thing into a worm compost bin. The last thing is mixing it up a bit here. Your compost bin should not have any standing water at the bottom. So this one has a little too much water at the bottom, which is why the worms are coming up to the top. When it's all mixed up, it should be like a wet sponge. And so this compost bin needs to have some extra carbon added into it. That can be done through terms of leaves, that kind of thing. But another really effective way is using shredded paper. Paper, of course, is from trees originally, so it's almost a pure carbon source, but this will absorb a lot of that liquid, which will then allow the worms to be able to move throughout the bin. If you have standing water or that compost kind of slime down at the bottom, that's going to become an issue because, of course, worms cannot breathe in water. They have to have a damp soil. So your ideal compost would look like this. There's not much of an odor to it. The worms are moving throughout the whole area, and it's like a wet sponge. So if I was to squeeze this, which I won't, you'll get a bit of liquid coming out of it, but as itself, it is not dripping at all. So there we go. The beautiful California red wiggler worm. One of those worms will go through about half a pound of compost in its life, which is about a 3 to 4 month period. And then when they mate, they lay a little egg sac that has about 10 to 20 little baby worms that will come out of that, beginning the whole process again.
Well, thanks, Mr. Freeman, and another great way to pass your time, whether you are making beautiful artwork or creating an indoor compost bin. Thankful for the work that our teachers are doing to help us to continue to be able to do productive things. Well, that pretty much wraps us up for today's assembly. But before we go, I want to again remind you, if you have pet pictures and videos, to follow the link in the announcements or to Edsby message them to me. And we are going to leave you with a few of the submissions that we've gotten so far. So after that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
For the pet therapy segment of assembly.
Wave. No, back on your bed. Kobe, go on your bed. On your bed. Okay. Wave. Wave. Good boy. He's a good boy. He's a good boy. Want to bounce? Sit. Sit. Leave it. Such a pretty boy. Such a good boy. Okay, take it. Take it. Good boy.
I love